I believe that in whether it's 5, 6, 7 years, I think the majority of syndications will be tokenized. Tokenization is simply the digital representation of the shares. So let's just say you create your syndication, you set up LLCs, you issue those membership interest to your investors, right? So an investor has 2.3% of your LLC or 4.2 or whatever that is. Tokenization simply creates a digital representation of that 2.3% ownership and puts it on blockchain. And so the SEC's position on it, and the way that most of these deals are done today, it's the exact same rules, right? You still have to register that security, find an exemption, or it's illegal. You know, most people are actually using 506C because they're trying to advertise and try to get to a bigger public. And Reg A is also starting to come up. More and more of them are being approved. But there's nothing magical about it. It's just a digital representation. And the promise is it'll just make resales much easier once that infrastructure is set up. So the idea now is when you buy into a syndication, it's not a very liquid investment, right? That's one of the big risk disclosures in the documents, is like there is no stock market for you to go trade your shares if you decide to want to get out after something happens in a year, 2 years, 3 years. There are marketplaces that are starting to develop in the digital world, where theoretically 3, 4, 5 years from now, it'd be very easy for you to say, hey, I invested in a syndication. It's a 5 to 7 year hold. Maybe it's a 10-year fund. But after 2 years, I want to sell. It's increased in value. It's been a good deal. I just need the money for some reason. That you'll be able to go on one of these third-party websites. That'll be sort of an exchange-like thing where you'll be able to sell your shares for whatever the fair market rate is. And the nice thing with blockchain is that all the information that you would need in order to determine the value of your deal, rent rolls and debt and, vacancies and all that stuff can be stored on blockchain, which makes it, trustworthy. And there's actually companies right now that actually will give valuations on these syndications every second. Like it's just automatically based on the cap rates, NOI, rent rolls, all that stuff that's on blockchain. So that's the promise of it. Again, we're very far away from it, but the term we use is STO, a security token offering, And we've done a couple. And they're out there. They're not super popular right now, but we get more and more calls about them. And I do think 5 years from now, I think that's the number I'm giving. 5 years, the majority, not all, but the majority of syndication, I think, will be tokenized. But check out it's one of the early episodes. I'm going to say episode 10, 15, 20 or so of the show. We did a whole episode on the tokenization. That's really the main attract. There are other benefits of tokenizing your syndications, but the main one is really for the benefit of the investors, so that they can, it just creates a secondary liquidity. And again, just imagine, you could theoretically do that today. Like you don't need, again, nothing magical about these tokens. Everybody kind of gets thrown off. They're just a digital representation of the shares themselves. The challenge though is that if let's just say let me plug for my Facebook group. Let's just say my Facebook group, I said, hey, this will be an exchange. You can buy and sell, shares. I mean, just imagine I'm offering you my shares of something. How do you do your due diligence or figure out, whether I actually own it, what percentage I own it? I always like to give the example is that, I could represent to you that I own 5% of the White House, right? And it's a White House, it's a White House LLC, right? Set up, and I can create fake documents showing the operating agreement for White House LLC, and I can say I own 5% of it, and look what it's worth, and blah blah blah. But there's no way for you to, if you're going to be able to go on a website and basically look around and click buy, just like you do on a stock, you have to have that information. You have to be able to confirm that information. That what are the rent rolls, what are the true distributions, what it's looking like, and all that's going to be held, as on blockchain, which is going to make it much easier for people to trust the information and say, okay, this guy does own 2.3% of this company. This company has been distributing X amount of dollars. This is the property they own. This is the fair market value of that property. Here's what the cap rate is in that market. All that information is going to be stored in a reliable source. So that's the goal, and that's the promise. We're not there yet. We're not. I would say we're not anywhere near there yet. Although some of them do exist. There's just 5 properties and 7 investors in there.
If you enjoyed this video and you want to check out the entire episode, click here. And if you want to see another similar video, click here.